This is an open letter to the Sane Society and, yes, in this case, Mr. Elon Musk. Here's the thing, folks. Of course, you all know this. I have to first explain some things to the folks at the back of the class. You all know these. You guys are, much more intelligent than I am, but I have to explain to the back of the class that there is this understanding that uh, many times the subject comes up, and the subject is about, if you could go back in time, would you kill Hitler? And always the expected answer, of course, I'm human and you're human and we're both moral people, and of course, if I go back, I kill Hitler. And after the obvious answer is given, expected obvious answer is given, then the two agree that they are more civilized than thou, and they continue their conversation, and they both sides agree that they're both moral and civilized and this and that therefore they would kill Hitler if they could go back in time. Well, frankly, uh, folks like at the back of the class, the answer is not Hitler. The answer is not, if I go back, uh, if I go back, the answer is not that, because the thing was, if there was no Hitler, they would have chosen Mittler, Schittler, any orator who liked the sound of his own voice and liked to talk a lot and was a good orator would have done the job. And then you would have you ask, then who was the real problem? The real problem was the very wealthy, the rich industrialists, the very wealthy, the ex royalty, the nobles, the merchants, the very wealthy, the ultra rich were the ones who brought up Hitler. They needed an orator. They were willing to pay for an orator, somebody who can speak well and with conviction and come up with very stupid solutions to very, you know, simple problems that the economy was having. But no, the rich don't want to give up their wealth. So this is the thing, when capitalism reaches a point where, the guy has a yacht for his yacht, the guy has two supply yachts for his pleasure yacht. When it's like 100, 200, 500. There's a well, rounded figure that can have that. That's basically the end of capitalism. That's sort of like the monopoly. That capitalism symbol is monopoly. Monopoly ends when that's where it ends. It really doesn't have to reach to one person owning everything. That's ideal. That's the ideal, but pretty much, if the Yemen monopoly starts with 100 million people or 350 million people, you don't need to get to the one to determine who was the winners. You get to, you know, you start with 350 million and you end up with 50,000, 500,000, 5 million of the 350 million who, own everything. That's pretty much you can, you have to stop the game and declare the winners. You don't need to go to one. I mean, you have Mr. Elon Musk and Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos and the Mars family, the Walton family, and this and that, and you have to come up with a prize, a worthwhile prize, give these prizes to these families, and say, oh, you did great at capitalism, great work, but here's your prize. But then now we're going to break up your corporation to itsy bitsy little pieces so we can start the game of Monopoly again without going to fucking war. You see, at this stage of capitalism, you have two options: go to war and destroy everybody's shit so you can all, start the game over again. You can go in and destroy everybody's shit through a nuclear exchange, or smaller and bigger wars, and so many wars that even without a nuclear exchange, everything turns into shit, as it is turning in Ukraine and in the Middle East. You can either go through that, or say, oh, okay, no, we don't want to go that. We don't want to destroy what we got. We want to break up our own corporation. Instead of, you see, the war is when two corporations don't see eye to eye. The corporate power on this side determines they want to keep all the profits for themselves, and the corporate power on this side says, no, fuck you, you have to pay us protection or else. That's where the war is not between people or between even monarchies or even because of Hitler. Schmittler. War is because the owners, those few on top of capitalism, before this it was, feudalism, those few on top from this side didn't see eye to eye with regards to profits, extent of jurisdiction. Extent of jurisdiction means profits. You collect, when you expand your jurisdiction, you collect more taxes. That increases your power, and you have an orgasm. Supposedly, I wouldn't know. The point is this: that you can avoid the war by, instead of your corporations going after the other side's corporation and trying to destroy the whole fucking country, because if you destroy the country, you destroy all their corporations. All the things they have put together, you have destroyed. And then, your corporations go in and buy the land and make their own, milk producing plant. That's, some cat cocksucker had a piece of land and had a, milk producing factory, but his factory was blown up by one of the missiles. Now he does, and nobody gives him, money for free to rebuild his, milk producing factories. So now, Shamrock goes in and buys the land, and it has enough, money, printed money behind itself for investment, that Shamrock goes in and buys the land and rebuilds the milk factory. But this time, instead of some towel head cocksucker, Shamrock owns it. He lost it, they own it. They rebuild it, but now a foreign corporation who didn't used to own anything in this land to make any kind of profit, now they do. That's the whole imperialism part of the program. And that's your corporations trying to expand and helping or encouraging the military-industrial complex to expand, how much farther they can do business in, own business in. Let's go in, destroy their businesses, then we go in, we build the same businesses, but this time we own it. Now we have a foothold economically. Again, all these wars are wars of corporation, wars of rich people. The nobles of this side went to war against the nobles of that side, and a bunch of commons died, peasants died. That was the days that the nobles led from the front. Now the nobles led from the very rear, under the bunker. Anyway, now the point is this: uh, all this goes back to corporations. Hitler, Schmittler. Corporations in Germany didn't see eye to eye with corporations in England, in France, in Russia. Before, it used to be the noblemen, the rich people. Corporations are the newer rich, the newly rich. Corporations are the newly rich. Money used to be handed, down generations after generations, but now, until it accumulated. Now corporations, accumulated in a matter of minutes because, apparently they can. But the point is this: when the capitalism reaches a stage in which, you know, the 1% of the society sees benefit in expansion of the corporations that they own. So they fund both sides, and both sides of the insanity. They fund both sides of the insanity, because both sides of the insanity are for expansion of empire, which leads to expansion of the foothold of these corporations. So maybe Walmart, maybe they don't say we are for war, but by funding the two insanities, both of which are very for war, for taking over more land so we can give a foothold to our corporations. Both parties were for that, and these corporations are funding that. Why would you be funding something that you know is not going to go nowhere good? Excuse me. Salute. You're funding, as for corporation goes, they're funding something where it's not going to go well. They're they're funding both parties, corporations. Most of these big corporations give the same amount to both parties. So to be sure, how about giving nothing to neither? But then that's the problem. They feel that if we don't do that, the guy who goes in, he may not look after our bottom line, maybe unfriendly, maybe try to break us up. So let's fund everybody. Let's give an exact amount and show it to everybody. So what are you funding? You're funding some people's jobs, right? In those people in advertisement and in media and in those services that the politicians frequent. You're putting money in their pocket. Okay, so they sing the tune that you want them to sing. The last time this happened in this extreme form was in Germany. You see what I'm saying? That the wealth was in very few hands, and they owned all the assets, so they didn't care if the government has to print money so people can eat, because they own all the assets. They didn't want any of the paper money. They own all the assets, and they gave a go-ahead to the government to go ahead, print as much as you want. I own asset. I don't own paper. And the common folks went in hyperinflation and blah 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 blah. You know, the guy owns assets. Mr. Bezos, sold a lot of stocks and went and bought the most expensive piece of real estate in southern Florida. Good for him. But this is an asset. I don't own paper. I own assets. I own Amazon warehouses, and now I own a big house over here. So I don't care, Uncle Sam. Print as much as you feel like. I don't own any of that paper. And whatever I do of that, in terms of profit comes my way, I'm willing to share this profit equally between both parties. Especially if both parties are for me expanding my business empire, as Mr. Bezos does. So you don't need it doesn't need, his name doesn't need to be Hitler. Just the fact that these people are backing, these rich people are actively backing both sides, the two sides of both of which are for expansion of their business empires, that's where it starts. Where it ends, I guess it ends in Dresden, in Nuremberg. That's where it ends, after the total destruction of so much shit. I feel really bad from time to time. I have to, you know, destroy some ant colony while I'm doing something. I feel bad. It's the fuckers have, spent hours, days, years building it, and somebody comes and screws up the shit in. So you really don't, don't need to send your corporations fighting each other in a war, global war. All you have to do is consider your own corporations as too greedy and too dangerous because they're so big, and go to war against your own corporations. No communism. Break them up. Just like monopoly, which is your game plan in capitalism, just like monopoly, at this point you declare that you give a present to a whole bunch of winners of this family and that family, a Hilton family, and here's Kardashian, here's another. But we give you these prizes as winners of this game of monopoly capitalism, that we extended it for a couple of hundred years. I'm sorry, 75 years, 80 years now. We did the last experiment, and you guys got too big, and you wanted more, and we got into a war. So this time we just say we break up these corporations to no corporation shall be no more than 500 humans or robots. That's the only way that if we, instead of having these corporations have peasants fight each other because they want more territory, instead of that, just break up the corporation. Because if you have to make 5,000 corporations out of Microsoft, then monopolies can start again. Just overnight, you say, hey, yep, we got winners, and here's your winning. Here's a prize, but we are taking all the assets. The newly found fathers take all the assets, divide it all up in a capitalist format, but still in some format that nobody should have more than 500 employees. In this way, we stop the game, give the prizes, and then put all the monies back together and give everybody the same amount to start the game of Monopoly once again. That's the only way you can pass through this phase of capitalism without going to a world war. I think, and the Chinese have shown they can do that. Mr. that owner of Alibaba was getting too big for his shoes, and the Chinese reminded him that he's just a citizen with limited rights. And yeah, it's socialism. I'm sorry, communism might not sound good to you, and it doesn't sound good to me either. But socialism is basically, you know, wanting to, when you go around in the monopoly board, you don't see a shithole. Does none of the squares on the monopoly says shithole. It doesn't. I looked. So, but if you go through your cities and you have multiple of these shithole, in some of which I have lived, so when you have multiple of those shitholes, then you will figure out that okay, there is something wrong in these monopolies. In some neighborhoods, they don't even let me pass. Imagine in the monopoly board, you jump and you jump and you go forward, then you reach a neighborhood. They said no, doesn't matter how much money you got, you can't pass. This is a gated community, and the game stops. So, well, you see, when it becomes like that, in some scores you don't want to go because it's a shithole. That's that such and such a neighborhood in the city, and in some neighborhood they don't let you go because it's gated community. When capitalism, wealth division. Let's not call it capitalism. Let's say when the wealth division reaches such a level of insanity, you know, then you say, oh, okay, these folks have won the game of monopoly, the game of capitalism. Let's give them a prize, a medal, like Olympic medal for people who were successful in capitalism. And but now we're taking all your assets and we're dividing it up, selling it, but at a very, you know, agreeable low price, but nobody can buy more than a units of more than 500 employees. In this way, you start the game of monopoly again, capitalism can start again, and without these corporations sending people to war and trying to destroy the others' corporations and take over their land and put up their own corporations. This is not about, folks, this is not about religion, this is not about race, this is not about honor. This is all about money. And, you know, politicians that advocate for expansion of the opportunities for the home corporations at the expense of those opportunities for the away corporations, when the game reaches that point, that means the corporations have gone too big. You see, 500, let's say, bread makers, if there were 500 or if there were 5,000 bread makers in a large city of, let's say, Chicago, there are 5,000 bread makers, none of which have over 500 employees. They all have one voice, and there's 500 just bread makers' voices you hear as a politician. What could be more great than that? Because then you always have to stay centrist because there are so many of them. You know, there's not one bread maker for the city of Chicago or five. There is fucking 500. There are left in there, right in there, and the center in there. And in that case, the politician can stay center. But if the politician, let's say it's a day of meeting with the bread makers of Milwaukee, and the politician goes into the room, and there is one guy standing there, and he says, "And you are?" He says, I'm the bread maker of Milwaukee. You see, then they are on. They can have. They will become on first name basis. They will be on first name basis. It's sort of like Mr. Elon Musk and Mr. Greg Abbott. I'm sure they're on first name basis. Oh, Greg, yes, I want to talk to you. You see what I'm saying? When that happens, there are not 500, you know, rocket makers. There's one, there's two, there's three, there's five. You see what I'm saying? Just because of that, then, go to the donation room and you meet a guy who says, yes, I own the whole fucking business, I own the right side of your state. Or there is five of them. It says, one says, yes, I feed the west side of Texas, and the other guys, the bread maker convention where the governor goes, and the other guy says, I feed east of Texas, and somebody says, I feed south of Texas. So you got four bread makers, five bread makers, and when capitalism reaches that point of acquisitions and mergers, that's when you give a handout prizes, but take all the asset back and resell it to the public, but put a cap on it, says nobody can buy any unit of these large corporations that we just confiscated. Nobody can buy any unit with more than 500 employees. And the prices are cheap, and we're giving it away. We're starting the game of Monopoly again instead of going to war with Russia or China. Salute. That's the only way to avoid a war, but when the rest of it is bullshit. People vote. People voted Hitler into office. Start from there, and you can move your way up. You see what I'm saying? But the bar is that low that people put Hitler in office. Who says yes, you're right, and everybody else is wrong. you know, People like somebody who blows hot air up their ass. It just feels good. It that's what people like, and anybody. That's why all politicians are good salesmen. You don't see a salesman to say anything bad about the customer or with the customer. You don't see any good salesmen. Don't bring anything up to the customer that may prevent a sale. That includes insulting the customer or bringing the customer's ugliness or old age into the conversation. You see what I'm saying? So that's what people like. People like to be, sweet lies. Sweet lies, sweet little lies. Those songs. So anybody can say anything. So this idea of people vote and people voted, and they were German. They were not stupid, crazy people. They were Germans who voted Hitler into office with his rhetorics, and they liked his rhetorics because everybody likes some sunshine blown up their ass. But the point is this: that so it's not people who put Hitler in power. It's the people with the money behind Hitler who put people in power. Ring any bell? All these corporations and ultra wealthy individuals who keep spending all this money on this or that and nothing in between. And this or that, they're both singing more or less the same tune. At least as far as the foreign policy is concerned, it's sort of like let's kick some ass and not bother to take names because that's benefits corporations. So when they both see, John Bolton, you know, his his biography. I mean, the guy is a corporate man through and through, and he's not shy about it. He does actually, has written and said that, yeah, my job is to protect corporations, poor corporations, ultra rich people. So your job is to protect and try to help the expansion of the territory of ultra rich people. And he's on record saying that yes, I'm proud of defending our corporations, defending, expanding, offending for expansion of our friends, the corporations. Who are the corporations? Ultra rich people. So you are for ultra rich people. Okay, Mr. Bolton, in your own, you know, I understand this is your perspective. Don't hold me to it. Either you said it or it was written about you. But the point is this, that these people are advisors to many people who they themselves, have multiple corporations. All the senators and presidents and representatives have multiple corporations, and the stock market. They're all doing their own little thing in the stock market, and you see what I mean. When the guy is so rich, then he can throw a bone to somebody else. If you're the proud owner of 500 employees in any good sized corporation, you're over the moon. You don't have enough money to buy a senator. You know, with 500 employees, you don't have enough money to buy a senator. Senator who wins by promising A, but then delivers B when he's in office because he knows who fed the coffers. You see, anybody can be elected in the in democracy because you can you can be a one term of anything. Literally, you can be a one term senator or a representative and get away with a lot of shit. You can promise exactly, it's like exactly A and deliver exactly B for the length of your term and not even go back. I'm saying as an example because in the middle, basically nobody can do anything. So that the Brazilian guy, he was just he was too ugly. But that's a rare occasion. But the idea is that if you have if you have 500 bread bakers, 500 shoemakers for one small city, because of the law that says, we for the next 5 years we're going to break everything up and everybody can purchase a piece of Amazon, but a piece that has no more than 500 employees. Still, the rich people are going to be owners. Nobody, you know, assholes like me don't have enough money to buy a 500, you know, employee corporation or piece of Amazon, but many do. But they have. You see what I'm saying? They buy, and now capitalism can start again. It's like equivalent of redistributing the money in monopoly. Why not? It will prevent war. And I think that's the kind of thing that China has figured out. I'm sorry. If they have, call it whatever the fuck you want to call it, but if they have found a way to manage their system better, doesn't mean that you should feel offended that if you ask them for advice. You see what I'm going with this? I mean, is it? This is for the politicians. I mean, you want to go and ask the Chinese, hey, how do you do this? Maybe we should adopt some of your measures over there. Maybe we can do it as good as you're doing it. Or Russia. I mean, obviously you're not doing it as good as they're doing it because everything over there seems to be shiny, and whatever Uncle Sam's managers do, they go and break shiny shit in Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and Syria and Kuwait went up in flames and Egypt and Syria and Lebanon. And it's sort of like instead of shining your own shit, you're blowing up other people's shit. And this is to the benefit of corporations, yeah, because I guess Walmart can sell their goods to very poor people. They as long as it's safe and secure, we can do our business. We are good. We don't care that these people have to sell plasma to shop from us. We as Walmart do not care if our customers have to sell their plasma to eat. We don't care. We are looking for our bottom line and the price of our stock. And we own the grocery stores of half of the Western Hemisphere. We own half of the grocery stores in Western Hemisphere. I would think that qualifies as a start for fascism. That's when the corporations and the state work together to expand the corporation's territory because that means more profit and higher stock price. I think that's the end of the game. You can give a prize to them, but break them up to the sane society. I wasn't convinced until I realized Mr. Elon Musk or CIA or FBI operatives who tweet on behalf of Mr. Elon Musk tweeted something about Venezuela. That, you see, the thing with Venezuela, how it's all started, here's how it started. Venezuela did the unforgivable act of purchasing gas stations in mainland US. In Uncle Sam's land, Venezuela took some of the profits that they made off selling their oil. They went to Uncle Sam's land and they bought gas stations. It's sort of like a farmer's market kind of a deal. We produce over there at our cost, which are low, and we sell over here, where the prices are up, and we pocket the profit. That was the fault of the Venezuelan oil company. The whole thing that we don't like Venezuela, it started from there, about where corporations were making hand over fist money in the country that they had set up shop in, and the people were just like in Uncle Sam's land, where Walmart doesn't care if the employees have to sell plasma to subsidize their income, to supplement their income, they have to sell plasma. Walmart doesn't care whether their employees or their customers have to sell plasma to shop in Walmart so they can just eat. Walmart doesn't care. As long as they pay and leave, I'm all good. I'm Walmart. And other corporations, Amazon, blah, 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 blah. So the idea is that these corporations, when they find their way into new territories, they behave exactly the same. Doesn't matter how poor the neighbor, that shithole in Baghdad is, that neighborhood in Baghdad is, doesn't matter how poor they are, they have to pay this much for electricity because I, General Electric, went over there and put up what Raytheon, my sister corporation, had destroyed. I, General Electric, went and built it. Now it's mine. I went to rebuild it. Now it's mine. And expanded it. Now I have a big territory over there, and I can charge my electric customers in Iraq. You think GE has got a little too big for its foot, for its shoe? I think GE has got too big for its shoe. I think, Amazon and X this and X that and uh, Microsoft and Facebook and Ford and Chevy and Goldman Sachs and BlackRock, they all have got too big for their shoe. Period. They are controlling politicians now. If there were 500 Goldman Sachs, nobody would be purchasing any senators anytime soon. But because there is only one Goldman Sachs, one that caliber, yes, there is another caliber of BlackRock, then there is another caliber of JP Morgan Chase. When the name of your companies start expanding, like these Mexican names, Jose Lopez Gomez Torres, when the name of your corporation becomes JP Morgan Chase, that's when you know that you have had enough mergers and acquisitions. It's time to give prizes to these both JP Morgan and Chase. Give prizes to them, but take everything back and start the monopoly again. Because this shit is not worth it. This is the end of capitalism. And the next step, if you don't break up your own corporations, your corporations on planet Earth will start going after each other, especially Uncle Sam's corporations.